So it feels like we are entering the final phase of this cycle, so to speak. And history shows that it might get a little bit dangerous, especially going into Q4. Now, Bitcoin is already up about 700, 800%, which is pretty crazy, and I know a lot of you have missed it. But now we've got some crazy Ethereum targets, and it's starting to break upwards, which is nice. And also, random altcoins are just popping off. Nothing crazy, nothing euphoric yet, but certainly keep an eye on it. Now, this is telling me that essentially what's going to happen is smart money is going to suck, hopefully, retail. People that have not watched this video yet, people that will come very, very late, and it will drive the price higher again. So please do, if you enjoy this content, leave a like and comment what you think on the market so far, and I will get back to you and I will comment to every single one of you. So give me a challenge. We are, in terms of cycle context, okay, 700% up-ish, give or take. And we're going to talk about the 32 months it's taken from the FTX collapse to where we are today with Bitcoin and why we are kind of late in a way. And I've talked about this before if you've watched the channel about how dominance has been growing longer and it's been trickling up for a lot longer than the past, as I say. And if you don't believe me, look at the search trends and look at the retail app downloads and the memes popping off again. It is heating up slowly, very, very, very slowly, but it's starting to trickle, right? But as I've alluded to it, if we're talking about where, the whole bottom of this candle kind of appeared to where we are today, it's a good chunk, 700%. It's also 140 bars, which is 140 weeks, and you can argue that is 32 months. All right, so there we are. So that's in terms of a nutshell, and it has been a bit of a bumpy road. It hasn't been straight up, it hasn't been amazing. But the reality is here, we've got to look a little bit further back in terms of, well, what happened in the last cycle? Well, you could argue two things for the last cycle. We could argue the COVID crash to the top, which is 600 and whatever, 611 days, which is also, how many weeks is that? 87 weeks. And also in terms of monthlies, 20 months, right? So a lot shorter. But I know a lot of people in the comments will be also saying to me, I know you're going to say it, but what if it was actually here? Okay, I get it. But the reality is here, it just depends on how far you look at it, right? We are looking at a very, very interesting point in the Bitcoin elements, right? But let's talk about other things. Ethereum BTC, hello, warning, 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 breakout, we're going up, what the fuck? So yeah, this is the main thing here. The target levels and the percentage of volume that has gone into Ethereum versus BTC recently has improved a lot. And I've talked about that in one of the previous videos not too long ago in terms of ratio of futures volume. It's good. And that's what you want, right? Is it the best setup in the world? No, because it could go much higher. You haven't missed the boat yet, right? Realistically. And there's a lot of elements, and you can talk about obviously XRP, you can talk about Cardano doing well recently as well. People are starting to look at altcoins. Dominance is now at 62.56%. So there's certain things happening. There's a slight decline, not amazing, but it's enough to get people looking, right? And we could argue a lot of things when this is doing this drop, and we've got to look at these sort of areas, and that's similar sort of vibes in terms of this whole situation is a much, 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 much longer uptrend than what it was in the previous cycle. Which is why I think it's been harder for people to manage because altcoins have done shit for longer. Just saying, right? And you could argue, well, rotation's happening. You can look at some of the altcoins above my head here, below my head, sorry, where you could argue some of these are low, and you can go, oh, I can proportion some of my BTC into those, for example, right? And you can look at certain situations of why you would want to do that. But realistically, this needs to keep going lower. It does. And I've got a 53% level randomly plonked here. Now, the reason why I've got that is if you look at the weekly time frame and you look all the way along, it's quite a big level. It's quite a big juicy level. That to me is a really interesting point where we need to get below, realistically, around this whole zone. And if I want to highlight it, I can just do this. This whole area for me is like the interesting area. We need to get there at least. If we go there and then bounce off it and go even higher, it's going to hurt really badly, but we'll see where things go. But realistically, this, as I said before, has gone up for longer, okay? We need that relief. We need altcoins to come back in, but there's always a stepping stone, right? The stepping stone is very, very simple, and I've talked about this many, many times, so please do subscribe and like the videos. This is a stable currency dominance. Liquidity needs to come into the market, which is existing liquidity. Then we need to draw the plebs in, no offense to anyone, but we do need to draw in the the silly people where they're going to go, oh, XRP is going to go to $25 in one candle, or 500 and whatever, $69, whatever it is. You get the idea. So you want that kind of situation to happen where we're going to get that influx of craziness. And we've seen it before in the past, how violent this can go down and how crazy it can go. There's so many narratives, so many metrics, there's so many things to look at. But the realistic point is we are in risk on right now. We also have to talk about the likes of the Russell. This could go higher and has to go higher. In my viewpoint, when we're looking at this overall metric, in my viewpoint, it needs to break above this zone, which is the all-time high, by the way, just saying. So that is the one that allows altcoins to breathe much higher. We've also got to talk about the fact that for the first time in its history, we are at like literally 6,300. Okay, amazing amount of points on the S&P 500. And that's pretty big overall. And again, you could argue the S&P 500. So even though that is happening, it's all risk on everywhere. Everywhere. Gold's holding up. The VIX is doing, it's not crazy enough. And yeah, certain stocks are doing absolutely fantastic right now. By the way, if you're keen on trading, there's an amazing offer in the link below on Blowfin. Till the 22nd, deposit some money, get some free money. And guess what? You get 20% back on fees. Unbelievable offer, really. Now, in the middle of the screen, we've got to talk about risk. And the risk is, and the risky signals are all about August and the tariffs that could be coming in. Now, the market doesn't really like stuff like this, and it hasn't in the past, but they are coming online in August. And August can be a bit of a wishy-washy month, certainly for crypto. And as you can see, Bitcoin in the August area can be a little bit flat. So can September. So just be mindful of that. And even though we're having a big push now in the summer, which is quite rare usually, we've got to be mindful that maybe tariffs do create a bit of an issue. And that's a thing. Potentially 150 plus countries, 10 to 15%. And in what could be positive for the markets, I don't quite know what that means in terms of positivity. I don't like the idea of it. But for me, it might be because it's much better than the 50 and 40% that were proposed not too long ago, for example, right? Now, even though this headline is a bit grabby, please don't, sell everything because of it. I think we've got to look at what's ahead of us. But I will say this, if you've made a decent chunk of money over the course of some on altcoins, maybe sell a little bit, not loads, but just make some money and go and spend it on an Nando's or whatever. Just something random, right? But the reality is here, this is going into some really interesting points. We could talk about previous cycle, talk about the altcoin runs in like 2017, 2021, for example, right? And liquidity indicators are going all over the place. And there's one thing that I need to show you that's quite obvious here. The money that's going into the ETFs currently for Bitcoin is not holding up. It's not stopping. It's not slowing at all. There's no sign of weakness anywhere near this. And this is just going mental. But also look at Ethereum. Ethereum has finally broken upwards on this one and started to go up. There was a big, big volume day yesterday. We actually hit records on the BlackRock one, I think. That's pretty big considering. So we're getting there, finally, considering the average is 28. It's a big one. Let's not get too excited. The Solana one hasn't really took off yet, so that probably needs a few more eyeballs. Now, in terms of my overall plan, I don't want to scare you all, but if you do join my Patreon, you'll know about my exit plans. I do have videos about exit and entry plans and all that kind of stuff, so you can kind of understand the formalities of actually taking profit and make some fucking money this cycle. I do have kind of some levels here for Bitcoin. Now, this is just kind of preliminary levels in terms of if it gets up to here, I'll start making a big note of taking a bit more money out. And the reason being is because I bought the lows and I've been in Bitcoin for a while. I know everyone's end goal might be different to my own, but ultimately I've been in Bitcoin for a long time now. So for me, that area is very twitchy. But yeah, I am watching a lot of things. Certainly with Ethereum, I'm watching the levels of interest in and around these previous highs around 4,000. That's going to get really interesting to see what happens with altcoins. And I may well be, splitting up some of my income / my Bitcoin profits, Satoshis, into some altcoins for trading opportunities where this will probably be on spot, utilizing BTC and just flipping in and out of things and just going for the moves. And also, as I mentioned before, bluffing a little bit of leverage on the USD, having a bit of fun with it. Because when it goes a bit bananas and when the liquidity does return, and it does feel like at the minute, interest is rising, not so much with liquidity of retail, but just overall the buying pressure is getting a bit big now. It's getting much better, which is what you need, right? So I'm not going all in, I'm not going all out. I'm just trying to figure out, well, where's best to have my money? Obviously, most of it's in Bitcoin. That's done really well. Can I afford to buy and put into certain altcoins, for example, and put, say, randomly an example from last video? I looked at Nia, I looked at ICP, I looked at DOT, and because you all requested it, some of them Satoshi pairs are ridiculously low, and they could do very, very well in the short term in a massive run. So just be mindful of that. But as I say, though, do feel free if you want to, 50% off, join Patreon. I do 4 videos. You'll see my crypto holdings, you'll see my journal, you'll see what I'm doing if you want to follow along. But remember, because it feels like a late cycle for a lot of people, it might make you feel like a little bit of a genius, but right now they can take everything back. The market isn't on easy mode yet, in my viewpoint. You need to stay rational, you need to stay focused, you need to keep an eye on things in the chart. And sometimes people will get very lucky because they bought something randomly a long, long time ago. They've left it for 2 years and all of a sudden it's matured. So yeah, make sure that you do subscribe, you follow along with the news and the information. I am here most days, as you know. Don't get bogged down in it, please. Also, watch this video from the other day. You'll see the altcoin analysis I was talking about.